Now, there's something having a quiet revival now in Christendom, and that is militant Christianity. And this is something that's maybe gone missing for many a year in the Christian world, really, this understanding of militance in our faith. And we have to understand that the Christian faith was born out of militancy, Jesus being the forerunner before the disciples, who had to be militant in their faith and mission to spread the gospel. But the faith was born out of militancy. Now, if you look in the dictionary, we see militancy can be seen as force, a social or political movement using force, or it can be with acute pressure. I'm paraphrasing now, different interpreter, but there's two ways. It's through force, physically force, or through acute pressure, not yielding to the authority or the thing that you're trying to change, not yielding but keeping at it. And we can liken that to something like the suffragettes or something over 100 years ago. Although they did use force, didn't they? But the militant kind of unyielding pressure that they kept putting on. And Christianity was born as a militant, is a militant, and was born out of militancy, as we see with Jesus Christ. Now, Jesus Christ didn't do it through force, but he did it through direct pressure on the social political establishment of the time. Now, that we're talking about the occupation of Roman, the Romans in Israel, in Jerusalem. We're talking about the religious establishment at the time. If we go to Mark chapter 14, when Jesus is before the chief priests and things, basically, and that again, the high priest asked him, saying to him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? And Jesus says, I am, and you will see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven. Now, he's quoting from Daniel. He's being unyielding. Jesus is being unyielding. He's walking into the fire. And we see that through the whole of the gospel, this sort of culmination as it leads up to this discourse here at the end of Mark, where Jesus is provoking, he's shaking the establishment. We see this if you've watched the program The Chosen about Jesus, the one with Jonathan Rumi playing Jesus, very, very popular. But that brings alive the drama. You see how Jesus was deliberately provoking the establishment, the Jewish authorities, by healing someone on the Sabbath, intentionally. He was intentionally doing that. He was intentionally shaking the establishment. He was unyielding. He was walking into the danger. What's the cross about? Well, it's walking right into the danger, isn't it? As Jesus did. So Matthew's Gospel, I think it's Matthew 16:24. Jesus talks about, if any man come after me, let him pick up his cross and follow me. Jesus is aware that he is going to be unyielding. His mission, his whole reason is to be militant in faithfulness to God in his own mission, faithfulness to God, him being God incarnate, God's purpose. Nothing was going to shake that for Jesus. Now, this is Christianity. This is Christianity. I think for many years, many of us have seen it as some kind of fluffy, very caring, loving kind of thing. Christians being sort of very submissive, very passive, very loving. But we've probably overlooked, well, we have overlooked, haven't we, the fact that our faith is born out of militancy. It's born out of going into danger, going ahead, going into the trouble, facing it head on, facing his arrest, Jesus did, head on, being taken away, right into the danger, right into the into the fire, into crucifixion. If there's anyone that we've ever known, done anything, and many people have throughout history, when the Gestapo have got hold of sort of British officers or that kind of thing during the war, and they haven't talked when they're being tortured. Well, think of the crucifixion in front of you and realize that Christianity is unyielding. And that's what we have to take on ourselves. We have to take on the nature of Christ. We have to be his followers, and we have to be militant and unyielding to what's around us. So yeah, Matthew 16:24 says, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. The disciples were always wondering what Jesus was on about, and he couldn't have been any more explicit if he tried, because they were aware of crucifixion. They were walking around Jerusalem seeing people being crucified. It's part of life for the Romans, for the Jews living in a Roman occupied land, seeing the brutal punishment that the Romans would inflict on many, mostly poor people, mostly the lowest of the low. But still, if Jesus could have come in any time in history, the time of the Roman Empire was the cruelest. It says that people say that the Persians invented crucifixions, but the Romans perfected it. Yes, it was industrialized killing. We think of the Holocaust being obviously industrialized killing, which it was. Crucifixion was industrialized killing. Even worse, awaiting you was crucifixion than anything, really, wasn't it? Humanly speaking. And our Lord endured that and was militant. So really, Christianity is maybe going through a time now where it's not imagining itself, because this is the roots, but re-understanding the nature of the faith, the militancy of it, the unyielding of following Christ when the world around us is persecuting us, when the world around us is telling us what we're doing is wrong, when the world around us is taking our liberties off us. We have to understand that as Christians we have to be militant just as Christ was, and this is the fundamental basis of our faith. Not to yield to the world, because as Jesus says, he has overcome the world, but to endure the world with him, because he has overcome the world. So this almost a new understanding, part of our faith, which we should have never lost, is probably going to be coming back faster and stronger and harder in the future now than it was in previous decades. It's going to be brought back, I believe, in order for Christendom to collect itself, to come together, strengthen, and to proclaim the truth about Jesus Christ and proclaim it to the world and our nation again. The militancy of Christ. Something for us to think about. Something else to think about. We're aware of these Christian images of Jesus, now at Christmas and the Nativity. But we forget the context of where Jesus came into, the context, of his birth, even the persecution as he was growing up in his early years from Herod, with all the young boys being murdered. And it never stops. It's always only a step away. And Jesus' timing for the cross brought about our salvation. But it was only brought about through his militancy, through his love for us and his unyielding to what the world presented him and how the world judged him. And that's for us to embody ourselves as Christians. So plenty for us to think about, but I hope this has been a help for someone out there. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.